So if there's one big problem with being a woodworker, or at least an aspiring one, it's that thing that people say, "Oh, you could make that for me, couldn't you?" Well, quite often the answer is yes. But there's a difference between could and want to. And today, I don't really want to make what the clients asked for. The clients asked for a slim letter holder or a mail holder. But I don't want to do that because that means working with only thin ply. And to be honest, you could buy something like that for 10 quid on Amazon. But when the client is the wife, then you have to just go for happy wife, happy life. Still going to make it a bit chunky though. Before I get started, I just want to apologise for sounding like some kind of elephant with its trunk in a knot. I am being attacked left, right and centre by pollen at the minute. Do we even need flowers in the world? Please don't comment. I realise that we do need flowers in the world. Anyway, I've got these chunky boards. I don't even know why I originally bought them. I think I just bought them because they were cheap. But these boards just need milling down a little bit. There's some slight cupping. So all I've done is I've cut a length. It's going to be too much for what I need, but then I can cut off the excess. And I'm just running it through the thicknesser. Once I was happy with the faces of the board, I just trimmed the edge off. The edge was very rough, so I'm just using my miter saw here just to take off a couple of mil, smooth it out a little bit. I want the top, if you like, of the side panels to be at a 45-degree angle. The best way I've found for measuring where to cut is to take the length of the board and just mark halfway down, then take the width and mark halfway down that, before finally getting the square and then using that 45-degree angle, and you basically just slide it along the edge of the board until it hits that cross, and then you've got your 45-degree cut line. This means that that cut will split this material perfectly in half and both sides will match. In theory. I'm just checking here because I'm not always confident with my theory. I don't know why I ever doubt myself. In fact, I do. I'm forever making mistakes. So my original plan was to keep this really chunky and rustic looking. I still want to do that because I don't want to just use sheet material. I'm going to have to use some for the dividers. But the wife's going to hate this. This is going to sit on our breakfast bar and it's just going to take up too much room. So she's probably right because you don't need that many letters going in. I think what I'll do is I'll run it through the table saw and take off about 30 to 40 mil, just try and slim this down a little bit so it's got less of a floor plan. Still like the height, just don't want it to take up that much table room. I ended up taking it to the table saw and taking off about 50 mil, which is 2 inches if you're in the US. I hummed and hard over this, but I know the wife's not going to like it if it takes up too much room. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to route a groove down the back and a groove down the front and maybe one along the bottom. I've got to use sheet material because if I just use pallet wood it's going to be too chunky and the wife will hate it. Now the reason I want the groove is because I want to give it a bit of rigidity, but I also want the edges of the plyboard where you can see the laminated layers to be kind of hidden. Now I could just butt them up, but then how am I going to get that rigidity? I haven't got any nails that will go this far and screws, it's too thin. Whereas if I create sort of a lap joint for them to fit in there, or a rebate, I think they're called, maybe not, I get rid of the edge of the plyboard on several surfaces and should make it a bit sturdier and more for the glue to adhere to. He says, like he knows what he's talking about. I set the fence up on my router table so that it was about 3 mil, just over 3 mil depth. I'd rather it be a little deeper and I can take that off with the sander afterwards. This was a bit awkward as this wood is not great, to be honest. And the push block that I'm using, the pad on it isn't very sticky, if you like. So I did take it steady, made sure to wear my full face visor just in case. If you watch my previous video where I moaned about lighting and how it should be something that you get sorted early on, here you can see exactly what I mean. The shadows I'm casting over this, it adds to the danger, if you like. I am working on new lighting, and hopefully by the end of this weekend it should be a bit better in some areas of the shop. Next thing up is cutting up the sheet material. Now I'm cutting one length of this, if you like, all the same width, and this is going to cut into 3 panels. As you could probably see there, it looks like a crisp or a potato chip in America. It is wonky and wobbly all over the place. I'm also cutting this piece of scrap 9mm ply to the same width too. As I've mentioned before, I try to avoid taking measurements wherever possible, so here I'm just using the piece that I've got already to find the width for this bottom section without needing a ruler or a tape measure or anything. I then just use the miter saw to cut everything down to the right dimensions. The beauty of this project being so narrow means that I can do it all on the miter saw without the need for the track saw. It was at this point too I decided I didn't like the pointy tops, so cut them off. Okay, now it's all done. I made a slight adjustment. My middle divider was actually taller than my front divider, which was great. I liked the look of it, but it made it bigger than the letter. And then I thought, that's going to be annoying to try and get the letters out the back, and the wife would hate it, and then she'd hate me, and then the wife would be unhappy. My life would be unhappy. So I've made these the same size, which is a bit annoying because if I'd known I wouldn't have brought the groove all the way up to the top, but you live and you learn. I told her I didn't want to do this stupid project anyway. So the way it's going to work is those will go like that. That will go on the front, sit in the groove. Got a bigger one at the back. Just like that. Then this one can just slide in afterwards without it all falling apart. So if you wonder why I'm wearing these glasses, it's because I've got my laser running, doing a bit of a design on the front of it to give it a bit more interest. Now I asked the wife if there was a quote or anything that she would like on the front, and she said just do whatever you want. I've got a feeling this project might go in the bin. I will take this second to plug that laser. Now, I'm not sponsored by this company, but if you check the link in the description and fancy one of them for yourself, I do get a little bit of benefit from that. So I'd appreciate if you use that link if you're considering buying one. Other than that, it's just sanding. Just sanding. And it's boring, and it's a bit awkward because everything's got grooves in and I'm getting splinters, but I just make sure everything's smooth. And now I'm on to assembly, which is as simple as putting some glue on every point where wood comes into contact and then using a brad nailer. Because of the thickness of some of the materials, I had to brad nail at angles, but it seemed to work. You'll notice from the bottom there, that is a scrap piece. I told you everything in this project was scrap, and I really mean it. That was from a test engrave that I did when I first got my laser. And this project actually came together in under an hour, the whole thing, start to finish. Now I've got to let glue dry, obviously, and then the wife can decide the stain, and then she can decide she doesn't like it and ask me to make a different one. So there it is. Quite a simple little project, but I managed to overcomplicate it a little bit. Now when my wife asked me to do this, I was reluctant. I thought it'd be really boring. She just wanted something plain and simple. And whilst it looks plain and simple, typical me has overcomplicated it a bit. Now I haven't put any finish on here or anything yet because that will be something that I do mess up. Whatever I do, it won't be what she had in her mind, so she can decide that. But yeah, I enjoy projects like this, and I just have to remind myself of that because it gives me a chance to tinker with tools that I'm not very confident with, like using the router table to do the rebates, like using the trenching feature on the miter saw to match it up. And what I find while I'm doing these is I learn like little hacks, like bringing the blade down into the groove from the router table, and then I can match that up with the trenching feature. And I got to use my laser. I'm also learning how to use that. You'll notice that this engraving is probably 5mm more to the right than to the left. But every time I engrave now, I'm learning something new, learning to be more accurate. Don't think she's going to like the quote very much, but that's her problem. She didn't decide. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.